and welcome to the 5 Star Revolution podcast with your host, CJ Price. Thank you so much for joining us here on the 5 Star Revolution podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel right now, 5 Star Revolution podcast. Go over to Facebook, like our Facebook page, and don't forget to listen to all of our episodes right here on YouTube. Tonight, we have a very special guest. He is formerly known as Tyson Dean, and now he is known as Alexander Koloff. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing good, CJ. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for joining me here tonight.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump right into things. Were you a fan of wrestling growing up? And if so, who were your favorites when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I grew up watching the NWA every Saturday night, 6:05. Um, Guys like obviously our uncle Nikita, Ric Flair, Magnum TA, Dusty Rhodes, all the Horsemen. Those were the guys that I really grew up watching.
So you were watching all the legends back then,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and you're related to a legend.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Been
you
brought
were
into the family by Nikita Koloff.
so basically you were born into the business.
Well, he brought us in later. But yeah.
So when you were younger and he brought you into the business, before you started training, before you started wrestling, were you allowed backstage?
No. We didn't. We never made that connection until I was an adult. I grew up with normal sports. Football, baseball, basketball, boxing, wrestling, things like that.
All right. So when did you actually start training? How did you find out about wrestling school in your area?
Um, so it was actually just by chance. I was coaching a football team and went out and took some kids to a show and everything, and then a guy that I had grown up with playing ball together, he invited me out, come out to the show and train with them and everything, and then got hooked up with a guy named Crew Jones that trained me, and then from there I've had some guys that I would say kind of polished my training since then.
Okay. So you were a football coach, so you already knew the physicality when you got into
Hmm.
wrestling. So
Yeah.
was it a hard transition for you when you started wrestling?
Um, Wrestling was harder than what I thought it was going to be. It was, like I said, I had shoot wrestled and boxed and played physical sports and everything. But then the one that was quote unquote predetermined and everything, I've had more real life injuries in than any other sport I've ever been
So what do you say to those people that think
in.
wrestling is fake?
I'll get in and try it. It's it's not a bouncy ring. It's not a trampoline. It's not spring loaded. It's a lot of steel and heavy wood that you're running into it. It's as physical as anything else I've ever been involved in.
Yes, I definitely agree. I used to be a wrestler myself out here in Massachusetts, so I
Okay.
definitely know what you're talking about. That ring is unforgiving, and trust me, it's not fake.
No,
And I'm
no.
not sure if you saw AEW last night where Cody Rhodes did that flaming table spot. That the after picture, his back was all fucked up, man. Third degree burns on his
Oh,
back.
really?
Yep.
I didn't. I heard a little bit about it today on Busted Open, but um, I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's not good. But let's move on here. So as I started the start of the show, you were formerly known as Tyson Dean.
Mm.
Let's talk a little bit about that. What was the Tyson D character about, and how did that come about?
Um, so it was it was a name I took on early on. Was always kind of a really good wrestler. I did a lot of technical wrestling, some brawling kind of stuff, but I guess I'd say it didn't really have a gimmick to it. You know, I mean, it was, I did well with it, but it wasn't something that, like now, with embracing the Koloff name, that we've really been able to, you know, have character that come along with it. Tyson Dean was always, like I said, a good wrestler, a good brawler, a guy that, you know, I had a look, but there wasn't anything so much I felt like that made it stand out like now.
How long were you doing that Tyson Dean?
For 11 years.
11 years. So when did you decide to transition into Alexander Koloff, and why did you do it?
My my partner Neil, he and I had been on shows and everything together throughout the years, and I mean, yeah, we were friendly and knew one another, but obviously not as close as we are now. And he called me out of the blue one day, and he said, "Hey, can you take a call this afternoon?" And it was like really random, and so I said, "Yeah, if you want." And so he called me that afternoon, and you know, we kind of chit chatted, caught up on how one another had been, and then he said, would you be willing to, you know, change your name and go with a different gimmick if the opportunity was right?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, if the opportunity is right, I would." And so then he started, you know, talking about Nikita and starting another, becoming a tag team, and that was something that interested me a lot because, you know, like I said earlier, you know, I grew up watching Nikita and Ivan, and then getting to talk to Nikita and hear his layout for it, and having Ivan's widow's blessing for it as well. It just seemed like it was a really good fit, and it was something that you know, I was really excited about. And then our first match together in the ring, and watching Neil in the ring, we moved so similar. We had similar styles, and we played off of each other well. I mean, even like, you know, our very first match, there wasn't things just clicked, and there was a really good chemistry together.
Sounds like it was a smart decision to do because the way you're saying was Tyson Dean was kind of falling kind of stale.
Yeah, I could say that. I mean, like I had a lot of good opportunities with it. I had some, uh, got an opportunity to be the NWA North American champion. I would say that was the peak of it. You had to do a match on 205. Did a lot of training with Luke Gallows at Doc Gallows School and everything. And so, you know, and even with the picture that you put up there on your page, you know, there was a lot of big opportunities that came of that. But then, yeah, it was kind of like I needed something to kind of restoke the fire.
So when you transitioned from Tyson Dean to Alexander Koloff, I know you said you were excited to do it, but were you kind of scared to move away from that because that's what how people knew you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you know, this change is always kind of a scary thing. Um, but then, you know, the first opportunities that we had in the ring, and like I said, I saw that the team was going to work, and then the more I got to know Neil and Nikita, I mean, Nikita's, you know, such a good man that, like, if if everything with wrestling stopped today, you know, I've got lifelong friends, and he's really become like a mentor in more ways than just wrestling.
So let's talk about the Alexander Koloff character now. What it's about and what does it present now?
Um, a lot more aggressive than in the past. Studied a lot of Ivan and Nikita's old footage and everything, and you know, we work in a methodic way to break down a team whenever we're in the ring. Nikita's pushed us to have an aggressiveness that we didn't have so much in the past, where you know, Tyson Dean would take the opportunities to flex and taunt, and um, Alexander just wants to be in there grinding out our opponents and focusing on getting wins and not so much taking our eye off the ball, and just bringing in aggressiveness and a nastiness into the ring that wasn't there with Tyson Dean.
And where are you trying to take this character?
As far as we can go. We've had one opportunity on the NWA. Been doing some things with Dave Marquez's Championship Wrestling from Atlanta here in Atlanta. And would like to do bigger things with them, because I like Dave's concept of how he's got territories that are set up, and that's always kind of been my heart for wrestling is like we talked at the opening with the NWA territories and growing up on watching it on TBS and 605. um, just whatever the biggest opportunities that could be presented for us, that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely, and I definitely agree with that. So let's talk about paying your dues. You're a veteran in the wrestling business right now. Do you still show up early, set up chairs, set up the ring, help out?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I get there and help out any way I can. Like this last show, excuse me, show a couple of weeks ago, we got in there, and there were some younger guys that were there and working out, and um, just asked them, did they mind, offering advice or anything like that, and they were receptive to it and got in the ring and worked out with them. Just because whenever I was starting, it wasn't always easy to get someone to, critique you or give you good advice or anything. And I've been really blessed along the way to have those guys that didn't have to do that for me. Some guys that have been to the very very top of wrestling, and anything that's been passed along to me, I want to pass that on to others as well, to help them out any way I can.
The reason I asked that is because when I used to wrestle and show up to wrestling events to pay my dues,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of veterans wouldn't help. They would show up
Mm-hmm.
when the show was about to start.
Oh yeah,
So I
yeah,
would get kind of mad about that, even though I was lower on the card. But still, man, you should be helping. That you're part of the show, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's always been a big thing, because the people that, especially whenever it seems like the guys that carry, um, how do you say that? The guys that carry the cockiest attitude, or are the least receptive to helping out or giving advice, always seem to be the ones that have, in the overall big scheme of things, have done the least. Like carry some kind of arrogance about them that's not really warranted. Most of the guys that I've ever found were the most helpful to me, and like I said, they didn't have to. They didn't have to do that for me, but just because they wanted to see other people do well, they were willing to pass that on, and that's something that I'll never forget.
So to piggyback on those cocky wrestlers, how do you deal with backstage politics?
Um, I've been told I'm not selfish enough. I was actually talking to someone this evening that I, got reminded that I'm not always selfish enough. It's a selfish industry, so you kind of got to toe the line between being selfish and protecting yourself, and not being selfish to the point that you're burying others. Um, so I mean, I've never been super hung up on, you know, finishes so much as it is just doing what makes sense and what's best for the show overall, and what's best, down the line for us, not necessarily always what's might immediately feel best.
So you're not in the promoter's ear trying to politic your way up.
Nah, they either they either gonna like me and we're have us back and we'll do what we do, or they can, if they don't feel like we're the fit, then we can move on. But yeah, I've never been big on, especially not if it's holding someone else back.
So I'm gonna test you right now. This was the portion of the podcast where I asked the wrestler to cut a promo for me in character for like 30 seconds, if you don't mind.
Okay. Anything in particular about?
On your next match, on your next opponent, whatever you want.
All right. Say when.
Whenever you're ready, brother.
All right. December 11th in South Carolina, we've got the Koloff dynasty with Nikita Koloff in our corner. The Good brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, Heath and D'Lo Brown. Tons of experience in that ring that night. But one thing you guys do not have is you don't have the blood of Ivan Koloff running through your veins. You do not have the support of the Russian nightmare, Nikita Koloff. And at the end of the night, you will not have those championships. Keep that in mind.
That's not bad. Not bad at all. So now that you mentioned that you've trained with the Good Brothers, you've shared the locker room obviously with a lot of legends and wrestlers that we know.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite besides the Koloffs? Who's your favorite to talk to and share the ring with?
Oh, wow. Favorite opponent ever?
No, like
Is what you're asking, or just people that you enjoy
wrestlers that
being
we
around?
know. Wrestlers that we know.
Um, Doc's always a favorite, just because he's even though I get to punch him in the head on December 11th, he's always been a good friend and everything. He's just a good guy to be around. He's always fun to be around. Um, Tim Storm is one of the best human beings walking the face of this earth. Rob Conway's always been a guy that I've loved being around. Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express, they're two guys that are just keep you laughing so hard that your sides are hurting by the time you're out. You actually get in a ring. I don't know. I could name them all night. There's just a lot of different guys that, for a lot of different reasons, you always enjoy their
So
company.
I'm imagining you must have one or two funny backstage stories or road stories that you can tell us. At least one.
Yeah, I think my one funny one. We were leaving a show in Nashville, Tennessee one night. This is a long time ago, and I was teaming with another guy, and we had a lady that always helped us out, and she was a promoter for a company in Atlanta, and she was driving, and so we had to drive from Nashville out to almost it was Dyersburg, Tennessee. It's just short of Missouri, and she only had the running lights on the car, and so she turns out and everything, and we get pulled over because she didn't have the headlights on. And so the police officer asks her to step to the back of the car. And I mean, we're on the side of the road for like 45 minutes. And so me and my partner are like, and what's going on? Because like we can, he's got the spotlights all inside the car and everything where he can see that we're not doing anything. And, I can see her at the back of the car. And then finally, like 45 minutes later, she gets in the car and she's laughing and everything. And he steps to the window and she goes, "No, I'm sure. Have a good night." And so like when we start to pull off, we're like, "What is that all about?" He thought that like we had kidnapped her, and so like we're sitting there and she goes, "He thought you guys had kidnapped me," and I'm like, "What part of me looks like a kidnapper?" And she goes, "He just said that I didn't look like I fit in with you two guys, and so he's held me out there the whole time, making sure that I was really okay and that you guys weren't just making me say that and everything." And so I think that was probably the funniest one, just because it was so random and out of the blue. And
Well, well, you
probably
are a big dude, so
it was just weird. And then probably that, and then just missing flights or junk like that.
so speaking about being a big dude, what is your workout resume? What do you do to stay in shape?
Workout 5 days a week lifting. It's changed some over the past year just because in early March I had to have my tricep reattached. So I've yeah, that wasn't fun. So I've just recently, in the past 3-4 months, been able to get back to lifting weights and everything. Um, and that's but even through that though, that was Nikita and Lex gave me ideas on how to train and everything, since I couldn't do upper body, to do a lot of heavy lifting with legs and cardio and stuff like that to stay in shape. But so yeah, that's usually it, 5 or 6 days a week lifting, and then doing cardio to stay in ring shape. And I mean, really the more important part's the diet than it is the exercise. I mean, you can do a bunch of push-ups and stay in pretty good shape.
So it sounds like you're 100% dedicated to this.
Oh yeah, because that's one thing that I got in. I started in the ring a little, at a later age than a lot of guys do, and I've always said that, like, I wasn't gonna be the big out of shape looking dude and everything out there. That was never gonna be me.
Sounds good, man. Keep that mindset.
I
So,
appreciate
so if there's one thing that you learned in professional wrestling that you carry on into your personal life, what would that be?
it. I would say just to have a confidence in myself, bet on myself, um, you know that you can bet on yourself and take a lot of opportunities, and they can pay off. Where maybe so much in the past I might not would have done that as much. That was something that through boxing and wrestling that I learned a lot about myself. Where I obviously, like I said before, I played on team sports and everything, and in those type of situations, there's always a thing where you can say, well, that dude dropped a pass, or that dude flied out, or he didn't hit the free throw, or whatever else. And like, whenever you're shoot boxing or shoot wrestling, you don't get those kind of excuses. You either won or you lost. And the same can apply to professional wrestling. Like, if you get passed over for somebody, I mean, sometimes there's a lot of when you say nepotism in it, but at the same time, though, if you're there and like we said about being in shape, you're in shape, your gear looks good, you're the guy that at that moment fits what they need, then you're ready and you seize those opportunities. And if those opportunities come, be the guy that says yes.
So, with that being said, would you say wrestling has changed your life? And if so, how?
Um, yeah, it's changed my life a lot. I mean, it's been I've met some lifelong friends and everything through it. I've gotten to have experiences that that I never would have had it not been for wrestling. I've gotten to meet guys that I grew up admiring and watching, on TV and everything. And it was like whenever we were at the NWA, there was a thing where it was a real surreal moment where we're getting ready to go to the ring. We've got Nikita Koloff leading us to the ring. We look over and there's Billy Corrigan from the Smashing Pumpkins, and there's like all these, Ricky and Robert were there. And I mean, it was just stuff like that. Had it not been for wrestling, I mean, where else are you going to have moments like that?
So, what can we expect out of you in the next 3 years? Are we going to see you on TV someday again?
I hope so. That's the goal. I mean, that's really what we're pushing for, is to see, where we can take it to and everything. And I feel like we're starting to click as a team, obviously, with, things being what they were with 2020 and COVID. And then once that got rolling, then I get injured, and, we lost time with that. But I think 2022, with some of the things that are lining up, I think we're going to have a really good year.
So, how's the Atlanta wrestling scene right nowadays?
Um, it's really good. I mean, there's more talent here now, I would say, than there's been just about the whole time that I've been in this. Um, there's younger guys that are coming up that, with the Nightmare Factory being here in town, that there's a lot of talent that you see across Atlanta, and they've it's been pretty cool to see the guys that were the younger guys just 3 or 4 years ago, that now they're getting opportunities on AEW and different places around, and they're pushing everything in Atlanta to the next level, and
So,
that's been pretty cool to see.
what would you say it takes to make it to that big stage? Because it sounds like you got what it takes. You got the look. You got everything that it takes. So, what do you think is stopping you from making it there?
Um, I guess it depends on what there is, which company that would be. Just like I said, you got to be. A lot of times, it boils down to you got to be the right person in the right place at the right time for whatever they're looking for. I mean, obviously, with me being a bald, muscular white guy, I hear the Stone Cold stuff a lot. So if they're not looking for another guy that fits that mold, because I can't grow hair or anything else. But there's things that we're doing to adjust our tag team also, to where it's a blend of old and new, where it's not necessarily in the next year you'll see a lot of that, where it's not just necessarily a carbon copy of Ivan and Nikita. That there'll be things that will step up and change about us to bring it forward into a newer era.
So, with you've been a tag team, you've been a singles wrestler. What's your favorite team to do and why?
Um, I really appreciate both of them as far as singles and tags. Tag team wrestling is a completely different. It's funny because it's like baseball and football. They're both team sports. You play both of them with a ball, and then that's where the comparisons end. I mean, with tag team wrestling, there's a lot of nuances to it that I've had to learn. It and that's been the cool part about it for me, is that it's been like learning all over again. There's things that I do well, and there's things that Neil does well that we've been able to bring together and complement one another. Um, to where we get in there and it really starts clicking. But then there's a few times like this Sunday, I'm in a 10-man tournament at Wrestle America in Barnesville, Georgia, where I'll get the opportunity to wrestle as a singles wrestler again, and I enjoy getting to reach back into that old guy, where what all I got to do as a singles competitor also. Um, I really like both of them. I think at the moment I'm enjoying tag team wrestling a lot more though.
So, when you're doing singles and tag team, do you go in with a different mindset in the match?
Yeah, yeah, because as a
Different
singles,
psychology, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, because as a singles, I'm looking at what do I do well, but then whenever I get to be out there with Neil, and I get to look at what do we do well, and I'm constantly going back, and we watch our matches with Nikita, and he gives us advice off of you know either don't do that anymore, or that was good, but if you did this it would be better. And even on the fly during matches, whenever he's with us, that's always pretty cool, that he'll take the time, if there are the opportunities there, that he'll coach us up in the middle of the match. And so yeah, it's a different psychology. It's a whole totally different mindset.
One last question for you, Mr. Koloff. If there's one thing you wish you knew before you started wrestling, what would that be?
To get out there early on, like once you've gone through your training and your coach puts a blessing on you to that he'll put his stamp on you, and you're able to get out there and go and travel to to travel often and to get in as many matches as you can, just because it helps to see different regions, because what works in one region may not work in another region so much as what would be entertaining to a crowd, um, and to like I said, with the people that I had the opportunity to train with and that polished my wrestling after my training, just always make sure that you're with somebody that's actually, that's been there and done it. That's not just the guy that always stayed in one spot and never went anywhere.
Good advice, my friend. Good advice. So, where can our fans find you on social media? Where can they follow you?
At Alexander Koloff on Instagram. Sorry, I went blank. Um, at Alexander Koloff on Twitter and Alexander Koloff on Facebook.
Anything else you want to mention before I let you go?
Just if you're in Georgia, come check us out this Sunday afternoon in Barnesville, Georgia for Wrestle America, and then next weekend in South Carolina for that big tag team match. And keep an eye on social media for the things we got coming up.
Well, there you go, folks. Go follow him on Facebook and Instagram, Aleksandr Koloff. If you're in the Georgia area, go check him out at a wrestling show. And thank you so much for joining us right here on the Five Star Revolution podcast. It was a true pleasure. And for you
Thank you.
listeners, don't forget, follow us on Facebook, Five Star Revolution podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel right now. Don't regret it. You're gonna listen to a lot more wrestlers right here on the Five Star Revolution podcast. Mr. Aleksandr Koloff, we wish you the best of luck in your career, and we thank you once again, sir.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.